your other cohort, your other students out here who want to learn from this experience also. So thank you all for joining us. And I think we have a poll for you all to take while everyone is trickling in. That'll give us a few questions about what we're talking about today, what's important to you, and more. So thank you all for joining us. We'll go ahead and pop up that poll. And thank you everyone for joining us. Maria, Emmanuel, Diana, Aaliyah, Mario, iPhone, whoever that is, welcome. Sakura, Denise, Kimberly, Magali, Stephanie, Evelyn. Anyway, so a few kind of fun questions and a few that are specifically related to what we're going to be talking about today. So if you had to give up one for a year, what would it be? Phone, pizza, Netflix, or sleep? Ooh, I think all tough. Sleep might be the toughest because you can't really enjoy your phone, pizza, or Netflix if you can't stay awake. Question number 2, do you think putting others' interests first can actually lead to more success? And I think maybe, Irma, you may have your microphone unmuted. But if you would like to pitch in anything or talk about one of these poll questions, you're welcome to. Again, thank you all for participating in these poll questions. They're starting to pop up now. Number 1 so far is pizza, if they had to give up something for a year, but it's changing quick as we get more results in. Do you think putting others first can actually lead to more success? It's mostly not sure, but kind of tied between yes and no behind that, a little bit more yes than no. Which animal would you rather have as a pet? Dog is the biggest so far. We got a few miniature horse people and 0 lizards. You guys don't like lizards? My nephews only want lizards, but they have some chickens and cats and dogs too. Did you participate in a level 2 book club and read the book, The Go-Giver? So far, at least 21% of you, looks like 20% of you so far have already read the book. So for those of you who have, this is going to be a little bit of a refresher course. For those of you who have not, we're going to give you a quick rundown of the book, what it's about, and a few examples. Shayla, I think you are unmuted. If you would like to chime in on anything, feel free. If not, everyone will be able to hear better. We don't have too many folks on at once. Which of the following is the hardest to do consistently? Number 1 answer so far, being open to receiving. So a lot of you like giving, but have a hard time receiving it back. We'll talk more about that today. Followed by serving others, giving value, and staying authentic. Y'all are OGs, you know how to keep it real, it sounds like. Are your student alumni? I guess mostly students here. We have about a quarter of them are alumni and a couple guests. Welcome guests, welcome students, welcome alumni. Thank you, YC staff. Everyone who is here participating today, we appreciate you. By the way, I'm in Hawaii. This is actually a background, but I'm here on vacation with my family right now. So shaka, everybody. Aloha, mahalo for coming. Thank you. Which of these do you think is most important for building strong relationships? Number 1, listening skills. Number 1 answer so far. Authenticity, number 2, or maybe tied with empathy. Maybe empathy is just ahead in confidence. So thank you all for answering these poll questions, again, which is going to lead us into our lesson today. I did not introduce myself to all of you because I only know a portion of you. My name is Jay Martin. I'm a facilitator for 2 of the cohorts for this year. So I actually started with Youth Champions through the Summer Book Club, reading this book, The Go-Giver by Bob Burg, again, who will be joining us in just a few minutes. And honestly, when I saw the engagement from all the students, from them implementing what was in the book, and I was trying it myself, I was so inspired to see what everyone was doing. That's what made me decide to become a facilitator for this year. So that is why I'm here, and that's part of the reason that I'm here introducing Bob Burg, is because I did have the opportunity to read his book this summer with all of you. So again, we will just go over these poll results real quick. If you had to give up for 1 year, what would it be? I'm curious, 1 person wrote sleep and 2 people wrote phone. If you want to unmute and share, I would love to hear from the people who would give up their phone, because I was not expecting that from this crowd. Is there anyone who voted phone that would mind sharing about it? No? Okay. We'll continue on a little bit. I am going to ask for a few of you about what you think about these answers. Do you think putting others' interests first can actually lead to more success? We got a whole bunch of not sures and some yes and some no's. I think by the end of this, you will know much better the answer to this question and some specific ways that we can implement that. Which animal would you rather have as a pet? Dog was number one, cat, followed by a miniature horse, and one person wanted a lizard. I like all of those. I have never had a miniature horse, but I think it'd be fun. Which of the following is hardest to do consistently? A lot of you said being open to receiving. I want to call on someone here. Actually, Darlene, do you mind sharing? I'm kind of curious about this question. What did you answer, Darlene Palacios, if you don't mind sharing? What did you answer to this question here about what's the hardest thing to do, you think, consistently? A lot of people said being open to receiving, but some said giving value, being authentic, serving others. What did you think about this?
Personally, for me, I chose the same thing, being open to receiving, especially when it comes
Mm,
to criticism. And as I've learned through Youth Champions, what matters when it comes to like receiving criticism is the way that you view it, the type of mindset that you use. So I think that I'm getting better at like viewing everybody's criticism as something that I could like learn from and I could use something positively rather than looking at it like they're targeting me or if it's like something more specific towards me.
I love that answer, Darlene. Thank you so much. I have always had a hard time with that too, but actually, Youth Champions has helped me with that also. I think I forget if it was lesson 3 or 4. I think we talked about that, right? It's keeping an open mind and keeping a positive mindset. And I think when we keep a positive mindset along with that open mind, we can see the opportunity to learn more in that criticism rather than taking it as like, I can't believe they would say that. I'm never going to do this again. So I love that. And thank you, Darlene, for answering the question. We have a quick question on here about your student, alumni, or guests. Vast majority are students. We actually have quite a few alumni, 14 on here today, it looks like. Thank you for joining us. We always appreciate your feedback. And again, meeting the alumni in the summer class talking about Bob Burg's Go Giver is what inspired me to come and serve at Youth Champions. So thank you, Bob. Thank you for the book. And thank you, all of you students, for helping me learn and grow along with all of you. The last question on here, which of these do you think is most important for building strong relationships? And the number one answer was listening skills, quickly in the second, third by empathy and authenticity. So I'm going to ask someone else here, Abigail Mangesha, if you don't mind answering this, what did you share about in here? What was your choice? And what do you think is most important for building strong relationships?
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, just which of these things do you think is more important, most important for building strong relationships from the survey? Like listening skills, authenticity, empathy, confidence. What was your take on this?
Oh, for that one, I put listening skills just because I feel like it's important to take like another person's opinion into consideration when building a relationship because obviously the other person needs to know that like you value their opinion and their thoughts and stuff.
I love it. Absolutely. And I think some of us, I think was be quick to listen and slow to speak, I believe is one quote. And I can't remember if that's from the Bible or somewhere else. But we can't really, I think, in the spirit of this book, we can't really be serving and provide value if we're not listening to what people say, if we're not listening to what potential clients say, if we're not listening to what our friends say. We don't know how we can really help them. Do they want us to give advice or not give advice and just listen? So we really need those listening skills. All of these are, of course, important, but I appreciate all of you sharing your feedback about what you think is most important also. And we'll talk more about these as we go through. So I'm going to take down the poll results here, and we will go ahead and pop open the PowerPoint for today. And it's going to talk a little bit about Bob Burg, his background, for those of you who do not already know. We can go ahead, and again, I'm Jay Martin, a facilitator for a couple classes this year. Had a great time at the ropes course the other day. We will go ahead. The sponsor also is the Vera R. Campbell Foundation. There are various groups that help support, get all of you paid for your learning here and help support the program. So we appreciate that. And we appreciate, again, Bob for joining us today. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. And again, give you a little bit of background on both Bob and the book so that we can ask some great questions. I think he's actually in the room here already, but we're going to do 30 minutes of Q&A starting in 20 minutes. So who is Bob Burg? His business philosophy, first of all, advocates a service-oriented approach for a fulfilling and profitable business. Again, this is all about serving others and serving others first. So his expertise, he's been around more than 30 years helping teams communicate value and grow using his endless referrals system. He is, as we have read and are learning about today, the author of Go Giver, sold over 1 million copies, which is amazing, and translated into 30 languages and is a business bestseller. Named among the 30 most influential leaders by the AMA and top author by Richtopia, and also an animal advocate. I'm curious when Bob comes on, and I think I saw him peek in, but what his favorite animals are and what he loves to rescue. I really appreciate that. This is like the opposite of Tiger King, which was an entertaining Netflix show, but horrible to animals, in my opinion. And go ahead and think of some questions for the Q&A as we go through this lesson. So we can go ahead to the next slide, please. And again, so we talked about this in the Youth Champions Summer Book Club. That's why Youth Champions called up Bob and said, hey, we loved this book so much. Can you please join us and answer a few more questions? So we will go on to the next slide. That is why Bob is joining us. And because of the alignment with what we're talking about here at Youth Champions, right? So here's kind of the summary of the book. It's emphasizing the power of giving, putting others first to achieve success. So it's kind of told through a parable. It's basically this guy, Joe, who's young and ambitious. He's trying to get advice from other people, and specifically from this man known as the chairman, Pindar, trying to get advice on how to be a great salesman, how to be great at business. And so there's 5 key principles that the book goes through, and some examples in Joe's own life, which we'll talk about. And hopefully you all can share some examples from your own lives, and I'll share some from my own as we go through. So please go to the next slide, please. 5 laws of stratospheric success. So here's what we're going to talk about: the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, receptivity. And in each of those lessons, Joe has to apply this to his life in 24 hours. We challenged ourselves in the Summer Book Club to do this by the following week when we came back and shared about it. So again, I'll share a little bit more about that as we go through. We'll go to the next slide, please. First law is the law of value. That law is that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Again, how much more you give in value than you take in payment. So the first example comes from Ernesto. He's a restaurateur. And basically, his point is to deliver more value than the cost of the meal. So he makes sure his customers feel special. He remembers their birthdays. He does little special things for the restaurant to make them feel valued, some of which don't even cost a lot more money, right? But it's just being personable. So Joe learned this, and he has to go put the law into practice himself. And I think someone's dog is barking. If you can mute, we will open it up for some chat in just a minute here. But Joe puts this lesson in practice by providing a referral to a lawyer who informs Joe that his client will not be renewing their contract with Joe's company. Now, Joe got a little surprised by this because he was learning that, hey, if he goes, provides value, provides this referral, that comes back around. That's going to come back to him. Unfortunately, he didn't get that, and he got a little frustrated. So we'll go to the next slide and learn more how this unfolds over the course of the book. I want to ask you, though, so in this idea of your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment, is there a person or company that you can think of that gives more in value than they take in payment? So for example, imagine any time when you've been like, wow, I would have paid more for that. Like, that was that great. Maybe a delicious, like, food things you got somewhere, or a delicious dessert, or maybe a fun event that you went to. I'll go ahead and type in the chat, please, in the little chat box in the bottom. If you tap on the bottom of your phone, you can click the little chat thing and just drop something. Even if you can't remember the specific name of the business, just what was it that you got that you received more in value? And I'm going to start. Oh, by the way, the YC staff said, Bob is here. Just want to let you know. Thank you, Bob, for joining us early. Hopefully you'll get something out of hearing how we got stuff out of your book. So thank you again. Just the other night, I went to a free music night in the park. And again, I'm here in Hawaii right now on vacation. And I was like, wow, that's so amazing. They have this free music down here. But they did have it was arranged by a little business in front. You can listen for free. You don't have to buy anything from them. But I did buy some delicious food from them and a few drinks. to support their business because they're out there providing this great value for free for us. So that was something I recently experienced. Go ahead and type in the chat again, something you've recently experienced where you got more value from it than what you paid, whether it was free, whether it was something else. I appreciate you all sharing. Okay, so we got a few people typing in here. Alexa, teen events in my local library, free to attend and so many events to do. That's awesome that the library is doing that. I love it. Youth Champions, which gives way more value than they pay. Thank you for saying that, Teresa. Youth Champions does rock. That's why I'm here volunteering. Noodles from a small business near my school, 10 out of 10 noodles, amazing customer service. Youth Champion says, Jack Klein, founder of Youth Champions, always giving back more than he gets. Thank you, Jack. Eric, the Youth Champions rope course and Youth Champs in general. That Youth Champions rope course was so fun at UCLA. I drove down. It was a blast. And Cambria, yes, Jack and Cambria, thank you for always being givers. I appreciate it. Youth Champions, someone said, David here. Confirmation classes, my friends' cookies, Boys and Girls Club, Youth Champions, my parents, Pumpkin Patch, iPhones, if you use your phone a ton. Yes, these are also great. Thank you. The movies. I cannot even read through all of them. Mentors and friends. Thank you all for sharing this. I really appreciate it. The teachers who give us knowledge. We're going to go on to the next slide so we can get through and get some questions for Bob Burg. It's amazing that we can actually tap the author himself. It's rare to be able to do that. The law of compensation, number 2. Your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So the example here was this other business owner, Nicole, a successful CEO at an education software company. And so she explains her success is tied to the number of people she serves and the extent to which she serves them. So as she can get more customers, she's increasing her income and her impact. And so Joe decides to do this by not just providing value to one person, but to multiple people. And he decides to do that by serving coffee to each of his coworkers. Now he's getting a little bit better feedback than last time. He doesn't just lose a client and get nothing from it, so to speak. But people are, oh, hey, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate the coffee. And this is something he learned from someone else. I will tell you, I actually implemented this myself. My buddy was coming to pick me up from Southern California to tour some of his real estate projects. He was going to drive me around for the day. I love Vietnamese iced coffee. So I had everything at my Airbnb to make it. I offered him a cup. Do you want one? Yeah, brought it out in the morning. He's like, where'd you get this from? I made it. He was so ecstatic that I did it. And then when we got gas, I washed his window and he thought I was crazy. He's like, is it that dirty? I was like, no, I just wanted to help out. So these are a couple of things that I just did kind of with the first law to help out someone around me. And it was a little awkward, which the book talked about. He's like, is my window dirty? Like, are you okay? It's not a normal thing to do. But I think I told some of you I made some poor choices in life. I ended up going to jail for a while before I had the vision and goals and planning that I did today. My first job out of jail was washing windows at a gas station. So I love telling that story as I wash my friends' windows and help them out. It's also safer with a clear front mirror. So that's one way I try to provide some value. We'll go on to the next slide. And I may share another example. Here's the question. Think of someone you know who is really successful. And how do they serve people? So think again about someone you know who's really successful and how do they serve people? If you can think of someone, I would love for you to type it down in the chat, just like you did on that first question there. And I'm gonna give you an example. So one of my buddies is this guy named Arlen, actually who dropped into the class, one of my classes the other week to give some feedback. He is always asking people, oh, hey, are you having any issues, especially on business advice, because he's a great business mentor. What do you have, what do you need? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to build your business? Are you doing it this way? And he's helping me pick out some names for my company right now to build it for the long term into something bigger. So that's someone I can think of who's very successful, who is always giving back. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I met him too. Gregoria says my uncle, he works as a dentist and he just loves giving advice, right? Probably not charging everyone as much as he could, not trying to rip everyone off, but give that good advice. Thank you for sharing that, Evelyn. My mentor is always willing to help and provide feedback when I ask. I have a mentor, and actually my mentor is that same guy I was talking about who's always sharing great business advice. Joanna, my dad, he owns a restaurant and serves food to people, which is exactly the first example from his book. I love that. Thank you, Leonard. My mom, she's a social worker. Wow, that is giving back all the time. Justin, my aunt, she has a business that takes care of elderly people. I love that. You'll have such caring families. Thank you. We're admitting a few more people in. Looks like we got 98 people so far. Thank you. My father, he helps people as a plumber. Thank you all for sharing these examples, helping his employees in a deeper level. She works at a women's organization. Thank you all. I love this. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide and talk about the other laws that we have here. The next law is the law of influence. It says here, your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other interests first. Again, your influence is determined by how abundantly you place others' interests first. So focusing on them before yourself, right? The example here was Sam Rosen, a financial advisor who builds relationships and networks, and how Sam demonstrates the law. So it comes with always placing the customers first and creating a huge network of people. How many of you here, please raise your hand if you've been to a networking event before? Raise your hand if you've been to a networking event. Okay. It looks like maybe at least a quarter of you, if not a third. I love networking events for building that sphere of influence, right? You know someone, thank you for the hand, Angeline. But once someone sees the great things you're doing and how you're giving to others, when someone else asks them for a referral, it's way more likely that they're going to have your name in mind. Number one, because you've already provided value to them without expecting anything back. Number two, because you're kind of top of mind, so to speak. You've just been meeting with them. You've just been talking with them. You've just provided them value. So you can be the first in mind because you have that high level of influence. I really, really encourage networking. I've shared with some of you, I have networking events, built it into a conference, and I love networking with people and it's built into a huge thing, way bigger than I could have ever imagined when I first started. So go on to the next slide, please. Thank you all for the examples. I honestly don't have time to read through the dozens and dozens that come through. I appreciate the participation. Thank you, thank you. Next is the law of influence. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other interests first. Just like we said, who are the most influential people in your life? How do they fit this description? Or if they don't, why don't they? Chrysalin was dropping in. Oh, message popped away. So if you do have some specific people that you can think of and how they influence others in network, go ahead and drop them in. Again, I wanted to share about this business guy who's a mentor. He actually helped me raise a bunch of money for charity. So he offered to match the first 5,000 that I raised for charity. And I did this at my real estate conference. We got some speakers to donate their time. We got some of them to do it twice and then to match the donations that came in. And I think over the last 3 years of the conference, we raised just over $100,000 because this guy was so generous to match the very first 5,000 to get us inspired. It was insane. And he knew a bunch of people that he invited to the conference, right? And he's got a big network and he made sure, hey, make sure you bid on this. Make sure that you tell the speakers to bid on this. So an amazing way to grow something and provide a lot of value without asking for anything in return. We'll go ahead to the next slide, please. Again, thank you for all your examples also. The law of authenticity. I love this. The most valuable gift you have is to offer is yourself, right? This is one thing that I love especially because I do try to be honest about my life, what I've learned, what I've failed in, and I do get feedback that people really appreciate that about me. Again, I went to jail. I made so many poor decisions, and I would hope none of you do it. I wish I had a program like this, and I never would have done that before. But what was amazing is I used to always hide that. And once I started sharing, overcoming that, people loved the authenticity and where I'd come today from a place that was not so high. So I just wanted to share about that in my personal life and just being authentic with the people you're around. In the book, we talked about Deborah Davenport, a successful real estate agent and speaker. So here's how she demonstrated the law. She explains how she struggled in her career because she tried to fit a mold she thought was expected, right? She was trying to do what she thought everyone wanted to see, what she thought everyone wanted her to do, for example. And then she started being her genuine self and realizing that authenticity really was the most valuable asset, right? Not trying to pretend to be someone she wasn't. So Joe goes ahead and demonstrates this law also. He puts the lesson into practice by sharing genuinely about how this process has been going on for him with a colleague and a mentor, Gus. So we'll go ahead to the next slide, and I want you to all think about, do you know anyone who's just a very real, someone I'd call the OG? Who just gives it to you real, maybe doesn't have a huge filter. Welcome, Carlo. Is there anyone in your life? And maybe an example of how do they keep it real? How are they authentic? How do they not try to be someone they are not? And the question here is, have you ever had an experience where you stopped trying to be someone you weren't and had a surprisingly good outcome happen? And again, my own example that I can give is I used to always hide kind of my background, the mistakes that I made in the past, until I finally got successful in real estate, became an entrepreneur, quit my job. I didn't have to rent houses anymore. I didn't have to rely on someone else's income. And I realized, wow, I can just share this. And people reacted so well to it. As I was at my conference and started sharing about this, I mean, I was crying because of the feedback that people had and were so proud of what I had done since then. So again, in the chat, if you could please share an experience, maybe that you've had personally or with someone else, where they were just being authentic and you really appreciated that. And we will go ahead and click on the next slide. Amy said, my cousins, we grew up closely together. She was never afraid to tell me her thoughts. I appreciate that. And I'll read some others as they come in. Thank you again for sharing. This is our last law here, and then we're going to go into the question and answers with Bob. So again, the law of reciprocity, the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Dana said, my friend from middle school, she's always been supporting me through different challenges. Thank you for sharing that, Dana. Appreciate it. Dana, I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Andrea, my friend Jose is really honest with anything we need advice with. Thank you, Andrea. Deanna, my pre-calc teacher, always keeps it real and doesn't have biases. It's great. And keep those people around in your life. They're so important. Evelyn, my aunt, provided very honest feedback, allowed me to make better choices that have led to many opportunities. Keep listening to her. She's someone great in your life. Thank you for sharing. This, I will say, we did a poll earlier about what's the biggest challenge for you all. And this is what you said was the number one difficulty for all of you is to staying open to receiving. Part of that may be receiving feedback or criticism. Part of it may be receiving praise. Part of it may be receiving a favor. So we'll talk a little bit about what happened in the book. Pinder teaches the law, Joe, that giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. You have to be open to receiving too. And I know some of you are such caring people. I don't want to say you never want to receive, but it might be difficult to receive because you always want to be the one giving. But I appreciate everyone to just take a quick look at this and remember, no one can give unless someone can receive. So you can also be open to receiving sometimes too. And again, Joe demonstrates this law, puts the lesson into practice by being ready and willing to accept a referral back, right? So he kind of was upset on the first law after he didn't get a referral from kind of giving away this business, so to speak. But it finally came back around in the long run. And I wanted to share actually this gentleman who's been helping me, my business mentor, my friend, helped me raise a ton of money for charity. We've done business together. I met him through a random message on a website. He wanted some advice on something about Oakland real estate, which I was doing a lot of. And I said, sure, answered the phone. I said, you meet me next door for lunch. I'll give you an hour. Gave him some advice. He walked up in painted, raggedy clothes, old beat up truck. I thought he's a nobody, whatever, I'll help him out. We started becoming friends. We got a business relationship together. And eventually we ended up doing a ton of business. Turns out he's probably like Pindar, one of the wealthiest people I know. And we're still friends today and doing business together. And he's helping me with this conference I'm doing and getting space for it, hooking me up with all kinds of things. And it was just that one selfless act of giving when I first started. It's just providing advice to whoever basically messaged me. Yeah, I'll give you an hour. We'll go to lunch. You can buy me a $3 banh mi, delicious Vietnamese sandwich next door. And I'll give you whatever advice I have. And that's how I got such a great relationship today. So I just wanted to share again a personal example of how it's come full circle for me. We've traveled the world together, ridden motorcycles, visited the orphanages we support, raised a ton of money for charity, all because of that one time I answered a message and just tried to give a random person some advice from what I had to share, education and knowledge I had. So I encourage you all to go out there and be givers. We'll go to the very last slide as I introduce Bob once again. And again, hopefully you've all been thinking of some questions as we go through. So some of the biggest, most important things you've ever received. What's the result of someone else's giving? And again, I shared my example. I encourage you to think of your own. And without further ado, I'm going to give you just another brief, different little bio of what Bob's been up to. So we co-authored again this book, The Go-Giver, which many of you have read with John David Mann, and it's been one of the international best-selling business parables. He's been an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise, basic capitalism, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. Unapologetic, animal fanatic, South Florida rescue, foster, adopt organizations. His website is burg.com. It looks like on here. Without further ado, I would like actually to ask, if I may, while everyone's thinking of some questions, ask Bob the first question. Thank you and welcome, Bob. If everyone can please give a round of applause, as quiet as it may be, for Bob Burg. Thank you and welcome. I wanted to start with, what is your favorite animals that you're rescuing and working with right now, Bob? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jay. And I loved your teaching. Just did such a fantastic job of sharing the laws, and your story is certainly fascinating. And I just applaud you for overcoming so much of what you had to overcome, even without a group like this, that, as you said,
I wish I had it.
had you had a group like this, you could have avoided a lot of those mistakes. But you know what? Everything worked as it was supposed to, and now you're just such a great mentor to so many. And I just, have so much appreciation and respect for you. Regarding the animals, in this particular one, while it's both dogs and cats, it's mostly a cat rescue, because we have a very, very large issue in South Florida with stray cats, feral cats, and so forth. So this is one in which there are a lot of real heroes who are actually out there doing the rescuing and so forth. I more contribute financially and so forth, and so I consider them the heroes. They're the ones that are out there doing the real work.
I love that. So why cats and why animals? Did you grow up with the pet, or what's the reason behind that, if you don't mind me asking? Then we're
Yeah,
open
well,
it up for everyone.
we always had dogs growing up. We had 2 or 3 at a time. We had everything from Doberman Pinschers and Great Danes to little Chihuahuas and in between. So we were definitely a dog family. But I love all animals. So there isn't an animal out there, I don't care if it's, cows, raccoons, bunny rabbits, whatever. I mean, it's you know, elk or deer, and what have you. If it's an animal, I love it. They're pure and they're wonderful, and all they want is to live their lives and not be bothered, but only being taken care of by humans, which is the best thing we can do, rather than harm them, as unfortunately so many humans do.
Yeah. What I love, I've heard so many things about, am I caring for you, or are you caring for me? Am I providing value to the pet, or is the pet providing all that value and love to me? So I kind of love how it ties into what we talk about today too, is like the value goes so many different ways in both ways, and maybe without expectation too. I was kind of curious. I was actually wanted to ask all the students, alumni that are here, if you can drop your questions in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself too and just hop straight in. But if we have a few flowing in, it might be easier to go through the chat. I'll go ahead and throw some out. I was kind of curious, and okay, so we got one right here. Gregoria popped in. What inspired you? Thank you, Gregoria, for the question. What inspired you to write The Go-Giver, Bob?
Well, I had a book back out in the 90s. That's how long ago it was, and it was on it was really for entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought lots of value to the marketplace, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable or confident in going out into their local communities and building the kinds of relationships with people that would cause people to want to do business with them and or refer them to others. And relationship building is the most important part of business. Business is never about products or services. The products and services are important, but it's never about the products or services. It's about the people, and it's the relationships. And the premise of that book, of the book Endless Referrals, was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. You saw that in The Go-Giver in law number 3. So it was a how-to book, but had from the moment I'd been in sales 40 years ago, I always loved reading stories, business parables, where lessons could be taught through the use of story. And stories, they connect on a deeper level, on a real heart-to-heart level. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take that basic idea and put that into a story? Fortunately, in the early 2000s, I met John David Mann. I was a contributing writer to a magazine. He was the editor-in-chief, and I got to know John. And even back then, he had a fantastic reputation as a terrific writer, and he's a great human being. And I thought, it'd be great if he would be and he was really the lead writer, storyteller. I'm a how-to person. He's a great storyteller. And so we collaborated on that book. And the reason we titled it The Go-Giver was because really it's all about how much value you can give to the marketplace. And that's what that's what people care about. They care about themselves and the value that you can provide them. That's why they do business with you. And I'll tell you, you were talking about, I think, the survey you did. Do you feel that by placing other people's interests first, you can be successful? And a lot of people weren't sure. And I understand that, because it's very, it's very counterintuitive, because when we watch TV or see the movies or we hear from people, it's always about these people who are just focused on themselves. And well, you know what? In the real world, actually, the people who are focused on pleasing their customers and clients, those are the people who make a sustainably very, very healthy income. Now, when we say place the other person's interests first, we don't mean that you should be anyone's doormat by doing that. We don't mean you should be self-sacrificial and hurt yourself. No, what we mean is that you focus on the value that you are providing another person. For example, and Jay, you're in real estate, and I assume you're a realtor and you list homes and you sell homes, or do you not?
I'm actually not a realtor, just a real estate investor, but I have built my business based on networking with other investors and people successful in the business, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say even with that, I would guarantee you that nobody does business with you just because you would like them to do business with you and you would like the money that can result from a partnership. They do business with you because they believe that they will be better off as a result of doing business with you.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I swear I had to ask one. So why me? Like, why are you so drawn to me and doing business with me and everything? Because I had a hard time accepting, I think, that reciprocity for a while. And just didn't realize what I'm bringing in that authenticity. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you make a great point. And that, when we talk about the law of receptivity, that's really what we're talking about. It's being able to receive the fact that people see you as a person of value. So there was one comment, and I think her name was Brenda, but I am not sure. But she talked about her sister is I think either a bookkeeper or an accountant. She does people's taxes. Okay, so let's take her sister as an example.
Yeah, Brenda Lopez, my sister, she does taxes.
Brenda Lopez, yes. Okay, so Brenda's sister focuses on a couple things. She focuses on saving that person who's her client. She focuses on saving that person money on their taxes. She focuses on saving that person time, because when Brenda's sister does the taxes, it frees that person up countless hours for them to be able to do things they would rather be doing and that they're more inclined to be doing. Okay, they can be more productive, more happy, right? And she provides the families that she serves through doing their taxes. She provides them with the peace of mind and the security of knowing that it was done correctly. Okay, that it was done legally, that they're right. Okay, so let's go back to the law of value, which talks about giving more in value than what you take in payment. This is not about doing things for free. Right? There's a time and place to do things for free. That's wonderful. That's great. When you can help people out, Great, but that's not what we're talking about here with the law of value, okay? We're talking about giving so much more in value than what you take in payment, but both parties profit. And let me explain what I mean. There's a difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's what Brenda's sister charges to do their taxes. Maybe she charges, let's say, $500 to do their taxes. Okay, that's the price. Value is the relative worth or desirability of something to the end user or beholder. So what is it about this service that Brenda's sister provides that brings so much worth or value to that person that they're willing to pay her her $500 fee and feel great about it? What's the value they received? Well, what we know, which we've already discussed, is they saved $2,500 or $3,000 on their taxes. They were saved hours of time not having to do it themselves. They have the security and peace of mind that was of knowing it was done correctly. They receive much more. Plus, I guarantee you, Brenda's sister was very kind. She was helpful. She answered questions. She was empathetic in the way that she dealt with them. So they received well over $2,500 in value in exchange for the $500 they paid. Okay. Now they profited, but so did Brenda's sister. Why? Because it was worth it for her to exchange her knowledge, her time, her caring, her empathy, her talent for that $500. Okay, so both parties win. Now, in any free market-based system, and this is free market capitalism, okay, when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. People do so because they choose to. In any free market exchange, there should always be two profits: the buyer profits or the customer profits, and the seller profits, because each of them come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. Both Brenda and her customer came away better off afterwards. So that's exactly. But remember, the money came. The business transaction took place because Brenda's sister was not focused on her fee. She was focused on the immense
On that value.
that she
Yeah.
was giving them. The money was the result. Now, this is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. Okay, think about that. Money is an echo of value, which means your focus, and this is whether you have a car detailing service, maybe you have a lawn care service, maybe you've started a babysitting service or a house cleaning, it doesn't matter. It means you're
starting with that value, not the price.
Right. It's all
Yeah.
about, it's your focus. You focus on the value you're providing your customer or client. Focus on the value. The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value that you're providing.
I love that. And one of my buddies actually just learned this from him that I use for my group now is I want to provide so much value that you think it's a scam. And I love it when he said that. And I'm like, okay, that's my new thing that I'm adopting is I want to provide so much value you think it's a scam. We actually got so many great questions from students come in. A lot of them are touching on exactly what you're talking about right now. So I'm going to maybe quick fire a few out there and we'll see what we can hit because I love everyone participating. And thank you again so much for your time, Bob, to come and share this with us and this value with us. And Andrea Enriquez said, what value do you most resonate with? So we got 5 out there. Is there one in particular? What struck you most?
The 5 laws?
Yeah, the 5 laws.
The 5 laws. So there's the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. My favorite is the law of influence.
Influence.
Okay? Right.
Networking and
yeah, because what that's saying is, you know, to the degree that you can focus on making another person's life better, okay? That's the degree that you're going to create those know, like, and trust relationships. Again, when we say place other people's interests first, there's nothing self-sacrificial about this. You should never be harming yourself by doing this. But you don't have to. You can always introduce someone to someone else where both parties are going to benefit. And interestingly enough, when you do that, they're really happy with you. Okay.
And what you have to do, right? Just flip through the phone real quick and just send out an email or a phone number, right? Minimal
and here's
effort
the thing.
and really great value to both. Right?
Well, and let's say this. Let's say you're talking to somebody who, talks about they hate mowing their lawn. Well, let's say one of the other members of this group has a lawn care business. You can let them know that you have someone who you know, like, and trust, who you'd love to introduce them to, who could do a great job for them. And then you put those two, you've got two people who are both very happy with you. It can, giving that, placing other people's interests first can be taking time to listen. It can be empathizing with someone. It can be sharing knowledge that you have. But again, it should always be something that uplifts everyone. Everything you want to do, you always want to make it so you make everything better. One of my favorite books is by a guy named Michael Singer. It's called Living Untethered. And he says, and I have this posted right on my computer, so I'm going to read it. He says, the highest thing you can do with your life is to make it so that every moment that passes before you is better off because it did. That's the highest definition of the purpose of life, that every single moment, every person, every moment that unfolds in front of you is better off because it passed by you. It was raised a little. When we can keep that in mind, we're always going to be making a great living, and we're going to feel fulfilled, and we're going to have a lot of people who want to be part of our world.
I love that, Bob. Okay, again, the law of influence, get out there, impacting more people, having more influence, networking. I encourage all youth champions to get out there. A lot of you met each other at the ropes course. There's networking events that pop up all the time, but get out there and impact people. I love that. Thank you, Bob. Oh,
okay, can I make one more
you want to add
suggestion?
before the next one? Oh, yeah,
One more
absolutely.
suggestion, and we'll move on.
Please do.
A couple words I want to share with you in expressions, because I hear kids say this all the time, young adults like yourselves, and I just want to share these with you, okay? So when you see somebody, a customer, and I don't care if you're working in a pizza restaurant or if, again, you have your own business or whatever you do, when you see somebody, anybody, get into the habit, instead of saying, how you doing, like a lot of people do, instead say, good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Okay. When someone says thank you, from now on, never say no problem. Don't even say you're welcome. Say my pleasure.
My pleasure. My treasure. No, I'm just
Huh?
my pleasure. No, I love that. My pleasure. I'm always the guy who's like, no problem, or I don't like receiving it sometimes too. And I remember saying, yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah,
I'm
my
happy
pleasure.
to help.
Yeah, exactly. It always it's that little difference in the words you say to people. And it's and I was in a store the other day, and somebody, I'm 66 years old, somebody couldn't have been any older than 20, called, he was the cashier, and he said, thanks bud, or something like that. And I thought, wow, how about, oh, thank you, sir. And so when you call people sir or ma'am, that also, again, it separates you from so many people. And when you go for a job somewhere, and after the interview, write a handwritten, personalized note of thanks to the person who interviewed you. Okay, doesn't have to be long. It's just thank you for your time, and blah 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 blah.
And your consideration, yeah.
For your
But just something
consideration.
that's rare that people don't do anymore, right?
Right. And so when you do that, you're the only person who has done that. And that separates you. It distinguishes you from everyone else. Those are the little things you can do that add value that others don't think of doing.
I love that. And Bob, that actually ties in with what we've talked about at Youth Champions about positivity and bringing a positive mindset. And I feel like that just even that little good morning instead of hello just brings a little bit of positivity into the day. And just like you said for the quote on your computer there, right? Just making everyone's days a little bit good morning with a smile, right? That's a nice little tip rather than just hello with a wave. Let's get a few more questions. We got 10 minutes left. Again, thank you, Bob, for your time. Jack, our founder of Youth Champions, along with Cameron, said, what are some small ways students can give value to others, like teachers, friends, classmates, to build a positive influence today?
Well, first of all, it's always thanking people whenever you have a chance to thank someone. And again, I'm always going to say, and I know people will. Well, I don't even want to put that out there, but it's possible people will resist this. But when you send a personalized thank you note, handwritten to somebody, you will make a difference in their life. They will keep that note probably forever. Okay,
Wow.
so always encouraging people whenever you can. Sincere, genuine encouragement is always a wonderful thing to be able to do. So, there's always a way to, I call it making people feel genuinely good about themselves. Okay. And when you can
Love
always
that.
keep that in mind, how can I encourage? How can I make people feel good about themselves? Okay, those are the things that you do that add value to people's lives. We talk about authenticity, which was brought up. Authenticity doesn't mean having no boundaries and just saying whatever you want to say or acting mean to people. Right? Authenticity means living according to your highest values, which I'm sure are, kindness and genuineness and honesty. But, somebody might say, well, as an example, I like to use the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. That is totally wrong. That's not what we mean by authentic. What it means is this person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to
Bob,
become a better, higher functioning, authentic version of themselves. So we never
Yeah.
look at authenticity as not growing, right? We want to use authenticity as a motivation, as an impetus to become the best, the highest version of ourselves that we can possibly be.
Yes. And Bob, I love that. And I love your example about the anger issue because I thought you dropped into our last class on controlling emotion,
Oh,
anger, and that we can actually have control over that. It's not an innate thing that
oh,
must happen.
absolutely we can. We
I'm
actually
glad.
talked about, yeah.
And it's just another reason I know Youth Champions got the right person because it sounds like we're on the same wavelength with everything here. Thank you all for the questions and for Jack there. Let's see, we can get some more before we wrap up here. Let's see. Wow, we got so many through here. Amy Rodriguez wrote, did you ever have any particular personal experience with these businessmen that didn't have the confidence to sell? But I'm not sure if this is in the book, like the specific people in the book. And it sounds like I'm sure you've met many other business people who just didn't have the confidence to sell.
Yeah.
And you're using kind of, this energy, this parable to demonstrate to them how to build those relationships.
Yeah, and I had
Yeah,
talked about in Endless Referrals about how it was written for those people who didn't
yeah,
have that. And here's the thing. A lot of people look at selling, and again, this is because of the way it's portrayed on TV and in the movies, and unfortunately from some salespeople, who can give sales a bad reputation. But so if people think that some people think selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. That's actually not selling. That's called being a con artist. Okay, right. That's not selling. Selling is simply discovering what the other person does need, does want, does desire, and helping them to get it. The Old English root of the word sell was selan, which literally meant to give. So when you're selling, you are giving. Now, we might say, well, wait a second, Bob. How are we really giving when we're selling? Well, let's say you're in a sales conversation with someone. Okay. In other words, you have a prospective customer in front of you and you have a business and you'd like them to become your customer. So you're having what we call a sales conversation. You're selling. So what exactly are you giving? I suggest you're giving that person time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and ultimately exquisite value. So when you look at selling as that, now you can approach selling from a totally different frame of reference because you're doing something very worthy, very righteous. And Professional salespeople are honest salespeople, okay? And they understand, and you were mentioning earlier about listening is such an important skill. It's the most vital skill because it's only through listening and listening with an open mind and an open heart that we can understand another human being and really understand from their point of view.
And I love that. First listening and then always coming back to providing value. I think a lot of people maybe have a tough time with the sales thing or sometimes accepting things because we don't always, or I should say, I don't always remember that it's all about the value that I'm bringing and letting that be in the forefront of mind and the way that I can maybe feel more comfortable getting into that sales mindset or that business prospect or whatever it may be.
And Jay, I think it's important to talk about the law of receptivity just for a moment, if I may, because
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
important. And many people are saying it's difficult to receive, and it is for a lot of people. There's a reason for it, okay? First of all, the law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Here's what it really means. You breathe out, you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other, right? You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving, you breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving, Jay, you mentioned it earlier, are two sides of the very same coin. So why, if this is so if you've given great value, you should absolutely receive. And it might be in terms of money, it might be in terms of love, it might be in terms of friendship, it might be whatever, okay? So why is it so difficult sometimes? Because the world around us gives us very, very negative messages about abundance, about prosperity, about business, right? About money itself. So we need to really, and my suggestion is to make a study of prosperity. Make a study of prosperity and understand the principles behind it. Because a lot of what keeps us from really receiving is that, we've been told, basically for whether it's a matter of, upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, we see all these, if you look at any movie, you usually see two types of people. If you watch a movie, there are the good people who are usually portrayed as poor, honest, and whatever. Then there are the rich people who are always what? Mean and nasty and money hungry, and they want to step on people's toes to get what they want. Well, hey, there's all sorts of people in the world, and not everybody does things as we would like, okay? But in the actual real world, okay, what you find is most people are decent people, okay? And those people who make a sustainably good living, and I mean they earn a really nice income, these are people who typically are focused on bringing value to others. And so, we need to kind of, when we see things like, when we hear politicians say things like, well, millionaires shouldn't exist, we need to question those premises and ask, well, what principle is that based on? Why should millionaires not exist?
And have they provided that value?
Assuming they did it
Yeah.
honestly, they provided products, goods, and services to people who wanted them. It made those people's lives better, right? And
Yeah.
they're able to employ many more people. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know, we have such a short time together. I apologize. Don't mean to interrupt. I did want to throw out one last piece of advice that we could get specifically for our high school students here in Youth Champions, kind of beginning to develop their network now. So how do you get started building and then leverage those connections? And when do you know when the time is right to sort of maybe want some reciprocity or ask for a favor or whatever it may be? What advice would you give to high school students now to kind of build that for the future, and then when to sort of bring that back around?
Yeah. So first of all, always try to make yourself of value to others in some other way. Now, for your fellow students, it's going to be just from being a nice person. It's going to be from being a friend. It's going to be by being helpful in any way you can. If it comes to when you're at work, if you have a job somewhere, it means that you're doing those little extras. It means you're always making the customers feel welcome. It means that you're coming in a little early and you're leaving a little late. right? It means you're always respectful to everybody there. It means you're listening and taking in knowledge. It means that you're always doing those little extra things, okay, that distinguish you and make you valuable to that employer. And you can always ask them, once you have that know, like, and trust relationship with them, to introduce you to people who you might be able to learn from. I always love asking older people. I always do when I was a kid, and that is, I'd love to meet some people I could just, good, nice, successful people who I could just learn some things from. Now they'll introduce you to people because you've made them feel good by putting them in that position to even want to do that. And then you meet with people, you ask good questions, you listen well, you get in the habit of writing those handwritten, personalized thank you notes. You'll start building up a network quickly, and it'll be a powerful, powerful network that you'll have at a very young age.
I love that. So just to summarize, like always doing a little bit more, right? Always going above and beyond, that extra little thing, that extra nicety, that extra smile, that extra little favor. And then eventually down the road, and you're saying even just asking them, they kind of get a little bit of an honor that, oh, thanks for even asking me, knowing that I would, be able to point you in the right direction is maybe an honor to themselves.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, Bob, we just passed 3:30, so I don't want to keep anyone past the time that we have allocated for this. There's unfortunately no way we're going to be able to cover all the great things in the book, all the fantastic questions from the students, from Jack, from YC staff, and everything you have to share with us in just a short hour. But I appreciate everything you shared with the students, all the questions you answered, for have written the book. Again, it got me inspired to join and serve with Youth Champions. So personally, it means a lot, and hopefully means a lot to the students that we can have someone where we've learned from the book and hear from them in person. It really means a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I got to tell you, to everybody on this call, I'm so proud of you. I mean, you're just doing things that most kids and young adults don't do. You're so far ahead of where I was at your age, and you have a life in front of you that you can have stratospheric success, and that's successful in terms of financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, all those beautiful ways. So give plenty of value and make sure you are willing to receive as well.
I love that. The one last thing I was hoping we could do, YC staff, if we could get a screenshot, I was hoping everyone could give a wave to Bob and a little smile, so we could send this over to him as a little thank you for coming to share with us today. And please share what other things we could provide value to you, Bob. So if we can get ready for a screenshot, I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. If everyone can give a wave and a smile. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can get this over to you.
Thank you, Bob.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you so much for your
Thank you very
time.
much,
Thank
Bob.
you all the
Really
students
appreciate
for
it.
participating in this, for Jack, Cambria, and the alumni. Thank you all for joining. And again, for Bob, let us know how we could provide more value for you. Students, get out there and network, provide value, and bring some happiness to other people today. We'll see you at the next Ignite or in class. From Hawaii, Shaka. I'll see you next time.
Great
Mahalo,
job,
everyone.
Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Bob.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay, who else we got on?
Hi, Larissa.
Larissa, Sobia, if you do have any questions, we are happy to answer them now. If you are just sitting on the call, you are welcome to just chill or whatever it may be. Don't forget to fill out the survey also. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, anything? Are we all good? It looks like Bob's gone.
Thank you.
Most everyone's
Yeah,
gone.
Jay,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing so much today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you running that early session. I appreciate you facilitating this. I thought it was an awesome, awesome thing and a really great way to interact with the students. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it went pretty
and
well.
you guys too. Appreciate you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're like you're
Awesome.
having a podcast with Bob, which is very amazing, very engaging. There was like no dead air at all. And like
We had so many questions. Sorry, I saw some of the messages towards the end. I didn't see all the messages. So it was, we can talk more, I guess, about, yeah.
I think
Some of it.
I've seen the surveys about praising Bob, praising Jay about his presentation with the PowerPoint and stuff. And the things that us students would like to know is like longer time so that they can ask more questions.
I know.
I hope so too.
What a
But
great response.
yeah, like most of them are like 10. Oh my God, that's just what they really want. More time with Bob to ask him questions and for him to
Yeah.
answer questions. So it's like,
It was tough, and I think, I'd have to interject a little bit more to get through more questions. It's kind of limited time too, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, Bob definitely has a wealth, to share. So I'm glad
Yeah.
we could, get stuff, and maybe if he's up for it, he can like answer a few of our remaining questions in there. Is there any way to save the questions that got in there, or is that part of the record of Zoom? Or
It is part of the record of Zoom. I would love if someone would copy and paste it as well, though, somewhere.
yeah, if someone
I
could
can
do
do
that,
it,
I don't know if
Michelle.
it's too big an ask, if he could just like rattle off. I was trying to do kind of like a quick answer thing, but I don't think I really communicated that fantastically. Like about halfway through it, but maybe if he's up for it, I don't know if we could be like, hey, do you mind just rattling off a few quick answers on video to this that we could like share with the students or something? But
Yeah.
if not, we'll see what we can do or whatever. But yeah, thank you all. I think the presentation went good. Thank you, YC staff. I
Thank
just
you.
thought it
And
went really smooth. Yeah, no dead time.
Yeah.
And I
awesome.
think the one thing I would love is if we could get through more questions, but
Great.
we'll work on that.
Always great.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go jump in the ocean out here. I will see you all later. Salamat po.
All right.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
I will see you next
Bye.
time.
Say something to Sheila for a second so team can stay. Bye, Jay. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Sheila, can you stop?